You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 75. This week on the show, we're talking the business side of the waterfowl industry, and we're joined by Garrett Walker of Quack Rack. All right, welcome to the 75th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We are your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. Check us out at hpoutdoors.com. You can also find us across all of the various podcasting platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of them out there where you can find quality podcast content. You can find our show. You can check us out on all the social media platforms as well, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast Listeners Group. You get a chance to get in there, chat with a bunch of listeners of the show, chat with Dan, myself, everybody involved in the community. This week, we got a special guest, and we're going to talk a little bit about the business side of the waterfowl industry. And before we get into that, Dan, I want to ask you, first of all, how's it going?
Going pretty well, man. We finally got a little bit of sun in this neck of the woods, even though we still have quite a bit of snow on the ground, but finally getting outside and being able to walk through the woods with the kids, and, you know, they can actually move around without sinking in the 2 feet of snow that we've had throughout the last few months. So pretty good, my man. Every time. And also 75, another little milestone. It's always good to hit those fun numbers. So good stuff.
Well, this week we're talking about the business side of the waterfowl industry. And, we talked a little bit about the history of HP and all that kind of stuff. And we wanted to bring on someone who's, into more of, I guess the retail side of it, or, actually selling products and the challenges and all of that goes into it. So we're excited to welcome to the show this week, Garrett Walker of Quack Rack. Garrett, how you doing, man?
Man, things are good. 70 degrees in Texas, and we just got off the water, sitting by the fire right now. Got the gar starting to load up into some underwater lights that we got set up here off the dock. So things are good in our world.
Yeah. Sounds good. I'm sitting in my basement, and it's like, supposed to be springtime, and it's freezing. We had snowstorm this week, and I know Dan's been dealing with snow. So what you're dealing with sounds a little bit better than what we got in our neck of the woods for sure. But, one of the things that is something that we talk about a lot on our show, and, things that kind of, a lot of guys take for granted, I think, is that, a lot of people see on the internet and things, and, in the catalogs, all these companies that put out all this great product and great marketing and all this kind of stuff. And they get this perception that there's just this massive company behind it and a lot of personnel and resources and stuff kind of pushing these things. And a lot of times that's not necessarily the case. So we kind of thought that maybe this week we'd talk a little bit about, the entrepreneurs of the waterfowl industry and some of the challenges that kind of go into that and things that make different people successful. And, we thought that Quack Rack would be a great example of that. So kind of before we get too far into this, talk to us a little bit about Quack Rack and sort of, for anybody that may not be aware of what your company is, just give us a little bit of background about what you got going on there.
Absolutely. So at Quack Rack, we build American-made, 100% aluminum racks for your UTV and your surface drive or your mud boat. I'm a waterfowler myself, and we provide a solution to get all the gear that you need to the X, whether it's your decoys, your spinning wings, any gear that you want to take, tent blinds, whatever it is. We provide a solution with our front racks, our rear racks, roofs and roof baskets, and our boat racks, so that you can load up all your gear efficiently. And what we do as waterfowlers isn't easy. And what we try and provide at Quack Rack is a solution for you to get all that gear where you want to go.
I'm just wondering when did you guys start? When did you get the idea to get moving on this?
it's kind of funny. There was never an intention to start at square one and say, hey, I want to have a company in the waterfowl industry. It was simply, I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and grew up kind of hunting out of boats. And 6 years ago, I moved down to Houston, Texas, and tried to figure out how I can get into waterfowl hunting in this part of the country. And they do it totally different than what I was used to. A lot of flooded rice fields. And I joined a hunting club down here. And all of a sudden, I'm being introduced to these rice fields, and they almost look like waffles, just rice fields with pond after pond after pond after pond, these indentations. And I had never hunted out of a UTV necessarily. And at the end of the day, what I realized is there's a problem. And we absolutely loaded up everything we can in the space that we were provided, and that was the bed of a UTV. And it did not make sense to me at all. I thought there's got to be a better solution. And I had a Polaris Ranger that I bought, and I was, trying to do and then put my best foot forward and figuring out a way to make this more efficient. And so I literally went to the Yellow Pages and found a welder and had a rack made and just made it for myself. And before you know it, pictures went out on the internet and the phone started to ring.
That's awesome. I mean, you hear a lot of stories kind of starting that way. It's, I identified a problem, made one for myself, and now all of a sudden my buddies want one, and things like that. And it's really cool how how that takes off. And we've talked a lot about social media and things like that around the waterfowl industry, but how has that aspect of it impacted you and your business? I mean, when pictures go out on the internet today, it's a much different ballgame than even 5 years ago. When a product was trying to really, get launched and reach other hunters, like-minded people. Talk about the way that social media has impacted that and how you've been able to leverage that.
So I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm sitting in the Houston Hobby Airport trying to catch a plane, and my wife calls me. And she says, the exterminator wants to talk to you. I'm going, what in the world are you talking about? Well, she gives me our exterminator's phone number, whose son happens to be a real good duck guide down here in South Texas. And he was working on our house that day. And he called, and I get on the phone with him, and he says, what is that on your Ranger and you're in the driveway of your house? And I explained it to him, and he says, can I have 6 of them? My guys at our lodge would love to have those. I told them a price that I had mine made for, and went and had 6 made, and ended up losing my butt because the welder I was using said, I can't do it for that price anymore. It was harder than I thought. And next thing you know, you have 6 guides with the racks on the back of their Rangers posting pictures and putting them on Facebook, putting them on Instagram. And I've got a little grease board in my office in my house. And I used to put a little dash every time the phone rang. And simply from Instagram, simply from Facebook, I had on average within the first month I didn't even have a business at this point. I was just building racks, and guys were asking for them. We averaged 19.2 calls a day, 7 days a week in the first 3 months of trying to figure out, do I have something? What is this? And through social media is 100% the reason and I guess the way that Quack Rack got nationwide. When I started this business, the things that I thought would be difficult were easy. What I thought would be easy has been extremely difficult. And what has been easy is through social media. You build, I hadn't even built 10 racks, and I'm thinking, how am I going to be able to ship this or get this to somebody from Houston to Dallas, Houston to College Station? And people were calling from Salt Lake. People were calling from California. People are calling from, I call them the SEC states, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. And I didn't even have a box to put them in. And Facebook and Instagram are kind of it's our bread and butter. And I kind of laugh when people ask me about Quack Rack. We have no sales efforts per se. It's all showing our products through those mediums of Instagram and Facebook. And it's amazing how I'm not a social media guy. When I first started Quack Rack, I used to have sleepless nights when you get a negative comment on a post or whatever. It just kind of made me nervous. And now, realizing how that is the biggest tool to get our products out there and our brand and our name and showing the success that our products provide our customers. I can't say enough about what Facebook and Instagram have done.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is, we get a lot of questions. Well, not a lot of questions, but you see a lot of discussion these days about like pro staffs, right? And what it means about pro staffs and all this kind of stuff. And I can remember back in the day when like Realtree Monster Buck videos and stuff like that was the ticket, right? And this is way before Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. But I used to like wait for those videos and stuff to come out and watch them. And I'd see them refer to like their pro staff. And I was like, man, these, it's like a handful of dudes that are like hunting for them on TV and going to shows and all that kind of stuff. Cause that was how you had to market the product. You had to hang on to somebody that had a name in the industry and like get them to help push your product at specialized things, shows and all of that kind of stuff. Where now the pro staff position, quote unquote, has drastically changed because companies are seeing exactly what you're talking about. The power of social media and just people that can put out quality content and help promote your stuff through that vehicle is critical, and it's super valuable. So, it's amazing how much the pro staff, angle has blown up, but it's because of exactly what you're talking about. That power has really shifted. And it's relatively recent that this has become a thing, within the last, handful of years has really been where companies have been able to like kind of get up and get started running pretty quickly based on their ability to leverage and harness the power of social media.
Exactly. And the funny thing is we get calls all the time and literally during hunting season, if your phone is not on a charger all day, it'll drain all the battery because people think that we have a call center or people say all the time, man, I've tried to get a hold of you guys. We're answering the phones as fast as we can, but it's me and my cell phone and one other guy and his cell phone. And I was on a hunt in January and we were down in South Louisiana in the Lake Charles area. And a guy said to me, he's like, man, tell me about your shop. Tell me about your operation. And how many employees do you have? And tell me about it. And he was blown away to realize that all this has been born and bred and evolved through a cell phone, through social media. And there's not multiple employees. There's not customer service. It's just me and one or two other guys that I'm trying to get to help me keep up with what we've got. And that's what Quack Rack is. And Facebook and Instagram, because guys see pictures all the time, it's such a successful tool. They think we're bigger than we probably are in reality.
Yeah, I always love seeing companies like that, or even, we talked to John Devney a lot at Delta, and, they have a small office with a few guys in there, and just the things that it's impressive how efficient a small number of people can be. And that's always very impressive in my mind. So definitely, commend you for your efforts. And I'm sure that when you were starting out getting 19.2 calls a day, you were probably freaking out a little bit and probably pretty excited. I think I'd have been like, all right, we definitely got something here. So, what do we do from here? So
my wife always jokes with me and she says, before Quack Rack, you sleep like a baby. I'll sleep through anything. And then ever since Quack Rack started, it's been such a huge rush, such a big just ambush of interest into what we're offering that there are sleepless nights now, and trying to keep up and trying to manage everything is a challenge. And like I said, when we started this call, is that there was never an intention. We just built a product that provided a solution, and the phone rings, and then through Facebook and Instagram, you're able to create exposure all across the country.
Yeah, that's impressive. So when you started hunting down there out of a UTV, like, how were you getting all of your equipment out there? Besides, I just can't imagine everything going in the back. One, I don't own a UTV and only hunted out of them a couple times, but if the equipment wasn't out there, I could imagine either one, you'd do a lot of trips, or two, you're like running a jet sled or something behind it. So is it, how were you guys? You're just piling in with everything, or how did you approach that?
Just an absolute mess. Absolute mess. I mean, I remember the day that I literally in my mind envisioned the whole, we call them a gutter system and carabiner holders and all this. I envisioned the whole system. I was on one of those hunts that we've all been on where you set up in the wrong spot. And I'm with three guys that I haven't really hunted with much. And we set up, the wind changed, and the wind's in our face. So we got to reset up on the other side of the pond. And everybody grabs the gear that we all know. We threw out our decoys and had a couple of mojos and all that. And we had to repack it all up, and we're just throwing it into the bed of this Ranger, throwing it on the roof, doing all this stuff. And right then and there, I said, you know what? I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna create a product that is going to give me help or make this not happen again. And right then and there on that hunt, it was all envisioned into my mind. And now, just imagine trying to put 4 to 6 dozen decoys in the bed of a Ranger. You've got 2 dogs, you've got 4 guys, you've got 4 blind bags, 4 shotguns, all the other, motion decoys that you have. And just to your point, guys are going in and out 2 or 3 trips or whatever. And now with the Quack Rack system, you can hang up to 15, 20 dozen decoys on our rear rack without using any bed space whatsoever. You can hang 4 mojos on the top of the rear rack, and you have used no bed space whatsoever. You got layout blinds. I'm a big fan of the Momarsh and Visualay, and I can throw all my Momarshes into our roof basket on top, and I still haven't used any bed space. So we've all been there, and what we do is not easy. You'll hear me say that 100 times. You got to have the gear. You got to have the tools to provide for a successful hunt, being the decoys, being, whatever it is to make ripples in the water or spinning wing decoys. And what are you guys doing to load those up on a UTV or a boat and get those to the X in one trip efficiently, cleanly, and in a smart way?
It's hard. I mean, it's a struggle. I mean, I'm trying to think of, up here where we hunt, it's like you just pray that the landowner will let you drive your truck in the field. That's pretty much what you're hoping for. We have the fortune, we're fortunate. I call it fortunate, but where we hunt, we don't have some of these massive fields, right? And these massive spreads and things, and, a lot of walk-in type hunts and stuff, but it's infinitely easier, of course, if you're hunting a field, regardless of the size, if you can drive your truck right out to where you want to set the spread. So, using that, as a relative comparison to being able to do that with a UTV it would be awesome, because, a lot of farmers don't want you driving your truck in the field, but they'll let you drive an ATV or something like that, because they know that that's not going to do quite as much, damage if the field's wet and stuff like that. So, being able to leverage that is huge. But, I hunt a lot on water, and, I've looked at just the ways that I've jammed things into my canoe and, John boats or whatever. And I'm in and I'm just like, and then I see your pictures where there's like these, racks of decoys, like hanging off the side, all like nice and kind of like organized and not just in a complete disaster. And I'm like, yeah, that looks nice. I mean, that would be a much better way to go about things than what I'm currently doing.
And it's funny, the feedback that we've gotten from guys all over the country. They'll direct message us through the social media avenues that we've already talked about, and shoot us an email. And it's, can you do something for my truck? Can you do something for my boat? And, one of the things that when I come out with a product I'm very picky about my stuff, like probably everybody listening to this podcast, right? We value the dollar that we spend. We want to make sure that we have something that we would want to basically build ourselves. I don't want any problems with it. I want it to be strong. I want it to be durable. I don't want any vibration noises. I don't want any of that. And so we've, based on the feedback that we've gotten from people all over the country, we're now doing racks for mud boats. And, when we first built a design, I'll be honest with you, I didn't like it. And I went up to Idaho in December, and we changed our design. We made some improvements, and we ran it on a Prodigy, and we ran it on a Sea Arc, I believe is what the name of it was.
Mm-hmm.
And even on a surface drive, the biggest problem that you have, and that I experienced growing up hunting out of boats, is you're stepping on your wings, you're stepping on your decoys, the dog's staring at you going, where do I go, right? And you're trying to do your best in the dark to drive with too much gear, with too many guys in the boat, and you're wearing your waders and all that. And, when we were up in Idaho, we were able to put 4 to 6 dozen decoys hanging on our racks, not even touching the floor. 4 mojos, all the blind bags and shotguns you want. And I even had the 2 of the Invisilabs, the dog stands, underneath the rack. So that's kind of what we're doing right now is just trying to build tools for people to get rid of the problems and make it, I hate to say more enjoyable, because the harder it is, the more of the challenge I guess I see. And learning how to hunt waterfowl, I put myself through so many failing situations and learned the hard way, like a lot of us have. And that's what we're doing, is we're just trying to find a simple way for whether you, like you, in a boat, or customers in different parts of the country using UTVs, just a more efficient way to do things. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think I was going to say there's a lot to be said for the, the work smarter, not harder, and the same thing. If you've hunted long enough, then you want to hunt smarter, not harder. And it really comes down to efficiency. And, we've had lifetime decoys on here, and, they're rigs to go out in the morning and not have to untangle something, an hour before the sun comes up, and just sit there and you get so mad. But I'm looking at your, the boat rack right now, and just the way, you have it laid out for the mojos or lucky ducks to sit in there, on their poles. You have little stands for them to slide right in there, nice and secure. You get to a point in your hunting career, I feel like, that you just get fed up with dealing with the nonsense. And this is one thing, if you do have a surface drive or a UTV, that really gets rid of a lot of headaches if you're trying to get set up, and it's something that, if I had a UTV or a nicer boat, I would definitely be calling you up and, saying, get some shipped up here. But, maybe in the future, but it's definitely something that, like I said, it's just the being efficient and not having to deal with all the crap it just makes it much more enjoyable.
And we've all been there on those hunts where everything's perfect. But setting up your gear, something goes wrong, and you miss first light. You miss the first couple of groups of birds coming in. You set up late. Something happens, and that's what we're trying to solve. We're just trying to provide a tool for guys to get out there and just have more fun, have more success. And to your point, the lifetime decoy rigs absolutely allow them to do that. And you mentioned this call being about more of the entrepreneurial side. Dane and Peter and Adam have been a great resource for Quack Rack. I talk to Dane almost every single day about business, about marketing, about using their rigs, using our products, and all those different things. And they just provide such a great quality product out there that they've been a great resource.
I was just going to say, Josh was talking about driving into a field, like having the weight of a truck versus the weight of a UTV, or even, when I get out in my boat, one of the first things I'm thinking of if I'm on the one choppy lake I get on, like how much weight do I have? And you have a nice intro video on your website, but I was going to say maybe just talk about, these are very sturdy, but talk about the weight of them and how you got to the product that you got to as far as materials.
Absolutely. And we've talked about it a lot through our social media, and that, I'm not it seems like everything we get in the waterfowl industry is like a China made cheaper product. How can the company expand their margins and make product cheaper? And at Quack Rack, we're going the opposite direction. The last thing I want to do, because I use my products, and the last thing I want to do is have them fail. Our products are 100% aluminum. What that provides you is strength, and most importantly, lightweight, especially for the guys with the boats, especially for the guys with UTVs driving in mud. The last thing you want to do is weigh your vehicle down. And our rear racks for our UTVs weigh 60 to 65 pounds, depending upon the model. Our roof baskets weigh 30 pounds. And that's one of the biggest strengths to what I'm providing is 100% aluminum made. All of our components are stainless steel, and it provides that lightweight strength. And I've become a student of the game. I've been thrown into this. And before I started Quack Rack, I knew nothing about welding. I knew nothing about what's the difference between steel and aluminum. And I'm realizing that is something that I probably need to do a better job, is educating people on the different products. Some of the things that are being sold out there are sheet metal, absolute sheet metal. The number one roof out there being sold by one of the largest UTV dealers out there, we were looking at it today, is a piece of sheet metal, and they're charging $700 for it. And, I'm trying to save my pennies and use my money just like everybody listening to this podcast in the smartest way. I want the biggest bang for my buck. And my roofs and my products are more expensive than that. But what you're getting for it, absence of value, cost matters. And what you're getting for that is a stronger, more durable, longer lasting product that literally is going to last longer than the product that you put it on. Our racks last longer than the Polaris Ranger, frames, plastics, all that stuff. And same thing, with the boats. We're using the same material that a lot of the higher end boat manufacturers are using with that aluminum. So there's a lot of pride that goes into what we do. There's a lot of pride in being American made. And, the bottom line is, how can I make my products stronger, more durable, and better? And right now, people always tell me, wow, you really don't have any competition. And guys are starting to copy it and make models that are cheaper. And I look at them, and we just had one right now. One of my guys that works for me sold his Polaris Ranger with a Quack Rack on it. And the guy he sold it to owned a competitor's, or a guy trying to be a competitor's product. And he goes, wow, this is totally different. And that's kind of the feedback we get. A lot of our sales are done online. 33% of our sales are done through dealerships. The rest of our sales are done direct retail. And guys literally see pictures online, and they've never touched it. They've never felt it. But what happens is when they get it in the mail from UPS, they open the box and they want to call me and say, wow, I had no idea. And for those of you listening that have been able to touch or feel or see us at a show or see some of the products, being used out there, that's what you get is a product that you're going to be proud of. And that's something that, because I use my products, and I'd rather have a company that fails building a successful product versus winning, cutting corners and making something cheaper. That's just what I believe in.
Yeah, I'm actually, I've got several questions I think I'd like to ask you about just the business in general, because, one thing that we've learned just in doing the podcast stuff is that, when you compare waterfowl hunting to, big game hunting and things like that, it's a quite a bit smaller market, and your product perhaps can have some overlap a little bit, if it's utilized for carrying tree stands and things like that too. So there's probably some crossover that you benefit from to some extent. But talk a little bit about, and obviously you guys have had success as you've already described, so it's like may have not have been a big of a challenge, but just talk a little bit about competing in a space that's it's really, the waterfowl community in general is really not as big as what people might think. I mean, as you mentioned, there's people within the industry that are, selling different products and things that you're, communicating with all the time, and, relationships are formed, and, the industry in itself is not massive. So talk a little bit about just sort of, competing in that type of environment as far as products are concerned. And, obviously not every waterfowl hunter owns a UTV or a boat, that has that. So, obviously that piece of the waterfowl market that you're after is even smaller than that. Just talk a little bit about sort of operating in that kind of environment and sort of the challenges and things that you've faced and how you've kind of overcome some of that.
So when Quack Rack first got started, I mean, go back to where in the world did that name come from? People have, the advice that I've gotten from friends and other, I guess, moguls in the industry, big time names in the industry that I've been fortunate to meet and be able to talk to and pick their brain. They all tell me you're going to fail if you stick to the waterfowl world. And one of the things that I've realized in running Quack Rack is I've kind of done the opposite of what everybody's told me. And the waterfowling community is a smaller community relative to deer hunting. But I'd rather have a big product or be a big fish in a small pond than be a small fish in a big pond. And when it comes to the waterfowl community, that's what I am. I enjoy waterfowl hunting, and that's where my passion and my heart is. And, all I want to do is provide a quality product. I'm not looking for a lottery ticket. I'm not looking to be more than what I want to create. And Quack Rack, you know what? We serve the waterfowl community, and that's what we're proud of doing, because I think, Dan, when I first talked to you on the call, you were like, you came out of nowhere. And the reason that is we have a product that provides such a simple and clear solution. And, we are looking at kind of tinkering with the deer hunting world. And I don't want to give any things away with some new products that are coming out for 2018. But the core of Quack Rack is waterfowl hunting. It will be waterfowl hunting. And with the feedback that we're getting and the questions and DMs regarding truck products, regarding boat products, what is everybody doing right now? I just saw Ramsey Russell complaining on Instagram. He's not in a duck blind, but he's out hunting turkeys, and he's still using his Quack Rack to go hunt turkeys.
Right.
A lot of our outfitters, Barry Ashley in Tennessee, he's fixing to get going in turkey season, and he uses his front rack product to load up all of his gear. So it's designed for the waterfowler, but like everybody listening to this podcast, we don't just duck hunt and then get out of the woods. Right now we're fixing to, right behind me, the gar are loading up and some lights that we have on the water. We're waterfowl hunters, but we're fixing to shoot gar. We're fixing to get out and do some turkey hunting over the next couple of weeks. We hunt pigs, we hunt deer, and all of our products, even though the core solution is hanging gear and decoys and all that, it naturally makes its way to provide a solution in some of those other hunting areas, I guess, or genres of hunting.
Yeah, one of my questions I did have written down was I have a Tundra with a cap on it, and it would be kind of nice just to be able to have one of your products on top of my truck. So if that ever does come down the road, I think I'll be in touch with you. So, but no, yeah, definitely in the waterfowls or the whitetail side, you see a lot of guides, taking down stands or taking stands out to put up for the new season, and I think, there probably is a market there for you to play with. So,
it goes back to the question regarding, what is our product? What's it made out of? And all of those things. One of our big customers are cattle ranchers. And literally the second rack I sold online was a guy in Mississippi, a farmer. And he's like, I can't wait to just take my bags of cubes and load it up for my cattle. And it goes back to building a strong quality product. Here's a guy that could care less about what the main use of the product was actually designed for. He just saw a need and a solution to load up bags of cubes on the top. And we kind of have at duck camp, we kind of have a game. At night we go hunt pigs, and we're always filling feeders. Well, with our products, it's almost a game. How many bags of corn can you fit in a Quack Rack? Because absolutely throw 10, 15, 20 bags, as long as, there's enough capacity to hold them, the weight is not an issue. And so to answer your question regarding how do you, the deer hunters and all the different ways to hunt and pig hunting and all that, the product kind of naturally crosses over into all those markets. We don't necessarily target that from a social media perspective, but we all use it those ways.
So I'm trying to keep all my thoughts here as questions come up and not forget. I should probably write these down. What occasionally we'll get guys reach out to us and say, hey, I got an idea of a company or a product, and kind of run it by us and see what we think, and things like that. Now I'm curious as to, being where you're at now and knowing kind of how you started, what kind of advice would you have for somebody who's listening to this show that's like, yeah, I've been thinking about doing something, and, maybe, I don't know if it's, if I could, or doesn't know how to go about it or whatever. What kind of advice would you have for somebody that, wants to try to bring a product to market, the waterfowl product to market, and kind of, I know you said some of the things that you thought were going to be hard weren't hard. Some of the things you thought were going to be easy were difficult. So maybe just touch on some of the challenges that you didn't anticipate, and just some general, guidance for somebody that might be looking to bring a product to market.
There's a character on Instagram, Gary V. And he's an entrepreneur and kind of motivational speaker. And he kind of makes fun of people with ideas, or he doesn't make fun of them. He mocks them and says, now's the greatest chance ever in the history of humanity to start a business, to chase after your dreams. And back to the first question you asked me about social media and all that, if you've got an idea out there and you're passionate about it, go after it. There's absolutely no excuse. Think about 30 years ago, 15 years ago, trying to get your name out there as a company. You have absolutely no excuses. And if the product works and it's successful, the market will determine and be the guy for what happens with your company. Quack Rack, I have not made the greatest decisions. I've made bad decisions, and we were actually talking about it in the car today. What would you do different? I would do nothing different, because I made those decisions at the time with the best knowledge at hand and the way that I was thinking at the time. Obviously, hindsight's 20/20, and you can always look back and go, wow, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have rented that shop. You shouldn't have bought CNC router tables. You shouldn't have gotten into all that. That was a waste of money. But at the time, I didn't know that. And the other thing that I'll mention, and I kind of hinted at it earlier, is I've done the opposite of what most people have told me to do. And the reason that is because I'm the one that had the vision or the design to come up with this. And when you ask other people questions, which is I ask way too many questions for all my friends and other hunters. What can I be doing better? Or what would you design? Or what would you do that? And oftentimes they would tell me something negative or something that I didn't necessarily agree with. And I just had to stick to my gut and believe in what I had. And I think that's one of the biggest, it's the fear of failure. And for anybody out there trying to start a business, you should never have the fear of failure. I've learned so much more through failure, learning how to waterfowl hunt or learning how to start a company and run a company. I learned more through failure. And I'll give you actual examples. When I first started Quack Rack, I needed help, and I hired a guy, and he wasn't perfect, and he really helped me in a lot of ways. And next thing you know, he went after another opportunity. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to find somebody else who can just jump right in? And when I did that, sleepless nights for 2 weeks, it was change. I wasn't ready for change. I wasn't comfortable with change. It's almost like nobody likes change, but what you have to realize is that change, that pain, that struggle, the next guy I hired brought more to the table. And then that guy decided to go do something else. We're a small business here. We put up with difficulty all the time. And I've had to learn myself to realize that opportunity comes from change. Opportunity comes from the hardships you have in running a business. And, you know, I ship product that is big, bulky, all over the country. I'm not a shipping expert. I'm not a packaging expert. I'm not a welding expert, but I've had to learn all this stuff, and it's been hard. But anybody listening to this podcast should know, do not fear failure. There is no better opportunity, chance, or time in your life to take that idea that you have and put it to test. And it hadn't been, you know, all rosy financially. You know, in my first year, I got my ass handed to me. And the thing about the waterfowl world is it's a strength and a weakness in that it's seasonal. So if you don't have a solid business plan by June or July, you are going to get roasted, because when that wave of sales come, it hits you like a ton of bricks. And if you're not prepared and ready, there's a problem. And my first year with Quack Rack, you know, I'm thinking in my mind, how many are you going to sell? How much inventory do I need to build up? How much should I be ready to have? Okay, is it 20, 30, 40, or 50? And then you sell 300. And you're like, okay, that was a good first year. And then in your second year, I changed some things. See, in my first year, I thought, let me build it myself. Let me buy the equipment, outsource or hire my own welders, and let me build this stuff. And I got my butt handed to me. And then in my second year, I was able to find a fabricator, and I outsourced everything to him. He handles everything from the ordering material, the fabrication. We ship it off to a powder coater, comes back. His team wires them up with LEDs from Stingray Industries. They put it in a box. They throw everything in there, a hat and a sticker that comes in a koozie that comes with every package, and they ship it. And I had to learn the hard way. And I've heard some of y'all, and I follow you guys on Facebook, and you know, a lot of us learned how to waterfowl hunt the hard way, and we would never take those experiences away or say those experiences of failure. You know, you were mad at the time, but when you look back, that's what made you better. And so if you're thinking about starting a small business, don't be afraid of those hurdles. All they're going to do is make you better and make the idea and the company that you have better.
Yeah, I think anyone that is starting a business or thinking about doing it, Gary Vee is definitely a resource that you should listen to daily. And if you have any negative thoughts or, you know, just second thoughts about even starting, he will take those away from you. And I actually have a shirt from Gary Vee, and it's pretty simple. It's 1 is greater than 0 on the shirt. And every time I wear it, at least one person asks me, and they're like, what does your shirt mean? It's very simple. Doing something is better than nothing. So if you're starting a company, like taking that first step is better than just sitting and thinking about it. So I think, you know, he is definitely harsh at times, but definitely a great motivational speaker. And I would say another podcast to listen to on that, Jocko speaks with the guy he's dealing with up in Origin, Maine, and the guy he's doing like geese and all kinds of stuff like that. But going to hiring people and firing people and the change and being worried about the change. Like, he ran a marketing company to start, this guy that owns Origin now. But, pretty much he had 4 or 5 employees. They held him hostage and said, we want more money, blah, blah, blah. And this is like during a downturn when he was paying them out of his pocket, not taking any money from the company at all. And they said, this was a Friday. They said, we want more Monday and give us your answer on Monday. So he came in on Monday he came in on Sunday and put all their stuff in a contractor bag and had it waiting for him at the door and said, y'all are fired. You're not going to hold me hostage, and I'm going to change, and I believe in what I'm doing. And so that just goes back to your point. It's a gut feeling of your product, and you know what you're putting out. So if it's a quality product or a quality idea, go with it. And if you know that it's what people want, then it'll end up breaking through at some point, even though those failures will hurt quite a bit as you go forward.
Right. Dane with Lifetime, he always, he'll share a podcast that he just listened to about small businesses starting up. And I guess, I started listening to some of them, and I'm probably the only person you've had on your podcast to bring up Kate Spade's shoes. But one of the podcasts that I listened to was Kate Spade. And what you realize, the journey of an entrepreneur is one of almost just the blind following the blind. I mean, I kind of mock people that you build a business plan and Excel spreadsheets, but that doesn't mean anything. You can have forecasted sales growth. That doesn't mean anything, right? You just got to keep having the passion for what you do, the passion for that solution that you're providing, and it'll all work itself out. And you don't know if it's going to turn right. You don't know if it's going to turn left. You just got to put your best foot forward and roll with it. And as long as you provide a product of quality, you're passionate about it, and it provides a solution or makes the situation better, it'll all work itself out.
I'm curious because, a lot of people, their companies kind of start as like a side business, right? It's like, oh, you got this thing going on and you do it a little bit on the side, but you got like your full-time gig and you're kind of balancing both. And one of the things that people talk about a lot is, your side business may be a more lucrative opportunity and a better option for you, but because you're working something else full-time, you're not able to put as much time and resources towards that side thing. So it never fully takes off. Like, for example, if you're into photography and you're doing portraits and stuff on the weekends or whatever, you're not fully building that out because you're working other times and all that kind of stuff. And I'm curious as to how your situation went. And, was it like, did you know from the beginning when you started, obviously your cost of acquisition and stuff, you clearly know your numbers. I mean, as far as the phone calls you're getting and what it takes to do. So, I'm curious as to how you handled that in the beginning. And were you like, crap, like this is something that I can make a living doing? Or was it like, I'll do this for a while and see what happens. And then, at some point you realized like, holy crap, I'm curious to how that evolved for you, because I think a lot of people kind of have these hobbies / potential other businesses that they're sort of afraid to commit completely to because of what they do full time. I don't know if that completely makes sense or not, but I'm just curious as to how your mindset was when this started taking off, and was there hesitation to fully like jump in with both feet, or, kind of how that thought process went for you?
I'm still struggling with that, actually. Quack Rack is a very successful company in its second year. And one of the things that I've kind of learned is I still have a full-time job, and Quack Rack is a side business for me.
Wow.
And I'm trying to team up and partner with other people. And could I, quit the day job and live off Quack Rack? Absolutely, I could do that. But I think one of the things that I struggle with is when you start a business, everybody has this attitude that it's going to be there forever. Like let me start this and then it'll be there for 20 years and then I'm going to sell it. And then I'm going to ride away in the sunset on a boat of money. Reality is it doesn't necessarily work that way. The mentality or the mental strategy that I have right now is we provide a successful product, a successful company. It doesn't have to be there forever. You know what I mean by that? There could be 5 years, Quack Rack could be around 7, and then we could get out and still be successful. I think the idea that, we're going to have something forever is kind of silly. But I think with the tools at hand, it can be done with the side business mentality. And if you partner with the right people, if you look at some of the here's one thing that I've learned. The owners of a lot of the companies in our industry, Terry Denman at Mojo's an engineer in the state of Louisiana.
Right.
But he owns Mojo. Ira McCauley is a veterinarian that owns Momarsh. One of the things in my first year that blew my mind is I thought all these guys just are 100%. They're not wearing a tie every day. They're not checking in at work Monday through Friday. They own a waterfowl company. They've made it. And then you meet these people and you realize that every single one of them has a day job. Every single one of them has a day job, and they're doing this stuff on the side. So I haven't solved it or made the leap. I think it's a fear and a struggle for a lot of people. Quack Rack's a 2-year-old company. I don't offer 401k plans and health benefits, but my employer does.
Right.
But I can still be effective partnering with the right people and hiring the right people to manage both.
Yeah, thinking about it, the people that we have talked to, a lot of them do have full-time jobs unless they actually work for a larger company like Winchester or something like that. Because, we both work 9 to 5s, obviously, and trying to get podcasts set up. We're, I don't even know what time it is. It's almost 10:30 right now, but we try and do later just because, getting the kids to bed and stuff like that, we can't talk during the day. So it is, a little eye-opening if people don't know that there are a lot of 9 to 5ers and there's a lot of extra work going on that, after that 5 o'clock ringer goes off. There's no doubt about it.
Here's what I'll say. And everybody, we all lead different lives and we have small families and all that. But the difference, if I'm talking to an owner of a company in our industry, they don't have a 9 to 5 mentality. It's not like I check into life at 9 and I check out at 5 and then I'm with my family. It's all hours of the day grinding, mentally grinding. How can I get better? How can I get better? And I remember when I got out of college and got out of grad school, I worked at a bank and I was a banker and I thought there's something better than this, right? And then I went and chased an opportunity that you work your ass off, you can reap the rewards. And none of it is 9 to 5. None of it is a Monday through Friday. Back to Gary V. Forget about Mondays, right? Forget about Mondays. You should look forward to Mondays. But the point I'm trying to make right now is that there is no such thing as 9 to 5 and then I'm off. I will grind. I will be on the phone. I talk every single day with Dane. I talk every single day with Mike Pline, who owns Toxic Calls. And every single one of them, you can get Nick. I call Nick at 7 in the morning. Nick owns Stingray Industries, the LED company out of Arkansas. I can call Nick at 6:30 a.m. and he's up grinding at something, putting a fire out, solving a problem. And that's a common thread with a lot of the owners of these companies. I talked to Addison at Gunner Kennels, and he's holding his 2-week-old baby, and we're talking about strategies with SHOT Show. So, there is plenty of hours in the day and plenty of energy that you have to utilize what's at your fingertips and provide success for yourself outside of your core job.
It just makes me think about the poster that you see just about everywhere with startup businesses, and it's 99% of the people work for the 1% that never quit. And that's, just goes exactly to what you said.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. we don't even, like we're a much smaller scale as far as our responsibility to the end user when it comes to producing this podcast. But even that, just putting out one show a week it's challenging for us, scheduling time and all that kind of stuff. So my hat goes off to you guys, because I know, like you said, a lot of guys are wearing multiple hats and really pushing out. And frankly, we've had some discussions amongst our listenership about companies and the products they put out, and companies that imitate those products, and costs and all of these things. But, for me, hearing guys like you talk about this kind of stuff is why I will pay a little bit more for certain products, because I know on the back end what's going into that effort. And, it's not easy. And, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So, tip of the cap to you guys for sticking with that. And, I'm glad. I've always talked about, companies coming out like Quack Rack, and companies, continuing to innovate, because it just continues to push the industry forward and innovate different products and get better. And for me as an end user waterfowl hunter, that's what it takes to get better products. And I mean, you're like an army of one or two guys, with some help when you need it. And it's like, in 2 years, you're already pushing forward, conventional thought on decoy storage and things like that. And, that's what the industry needs. And they need ways to, invigorate, people, and getting more people involved in the outdoors and making it easier and making it more accessible and things like that. So, it's not really a question, but more of just a statement of, kind of, you're confirming everything that I knew and believed. And I hope that, hearing you talk about it, is eye opening for some folks that may not realize what it takes, and how much you guys, take on as people to bring these products to market.
It's the thing that you in one of y'all's questions earlier, you said, what are some of the challenges that you face? And I haven't addressed that yet. I don't want to call it like a killer to any small business, but let me just put a name to it. The Amazon attitude. We've gotten spoiled with Amazon. What do I mean by that? Well, if I want to buy something on Amazon, what's my price going to be? It's going to be most competitive, right? Mm-hmm. I can go on my phone and I can find any product. I have a Prodigy mud boat, and when you read the service manual on my gator tail, it says that I have to use a specific Amsol grease for my gears. I've got to use a specific Briggs & Stratton fuel filter. Well, you just can't go pick that up. So what did I do? I went and I found my Briggs & Stratton fuel filter, and I ordered it. And when does it arrive? You get an email confirmation. It's there next day. And one of the challenges as a small business is the Amazon attitude, that people have been spoiled with that type of turnaround process or that type of efficiency. We're a small business. I'll have guys go online and order my product at, 10:30 at night, and then shoot an email the next morning at 9 a.m. going, I haven't received a confirmation email. Where's my tracking number? Has my order shipped? And that's, we go into my second year, and it's how many units do I need to build to be ready for this demand? And we had 57% growth over our first year. And I had no idea we were going to do 500 units of Quack Racks. And so there's times where I have to tell a customer, it's going to be a week. It's going to be 2 weeks. It's going to be 3 weeks. And it literally pisses people off. And I guess it's a good thing when people say, how the hell am I supposed to hunt this weekend without your product? And in my mind, I'm going, you've been hunting for how long? And you haven't had the product, but there's a, I got to have it now mentality that is a challenge. And we're doing our best to keep up with that. And what we're building, there's multiple parts to aluminum fabrication, right? What if the welders aren't showing up or what have you? In November of this year, We moved 18,000 pounds of aluminum in November in Quack Racks.
Wow.
And I had no, it goes back to my concept of looking at a business plan and forecasted growth. Throw that out the window. I had no idea what was coming. There's no way to forecast it. And I had some pissed off customers that had to wait, and it's tough to balance that. And like I said earlier about my wife's comment, you sleep like a baby, and now I don't, because I want to make sure that every single one of my customers receives their product on time, opens the box, and has nothing but pride. And there's nothing provides more satisfaction. My Saturday afternoons, after a duck hunt, I used to take a nap. And now I sit there and my phone blows up with emails of pictures. You've looked at my Instagram, you've looked at my Facebook. You notice there's nothing but pictures of people from all over the country with multiple decoys, full straps, having success, and proud to have a Quack Rack on their bike. And that is something that is, to me, the most rewarding thing, to provide somebody else a product, and it's changing the way that they hunt. One of our hashtags on social media is Haul More, Shoot More. And guys always reply back to us, send us pictures, and then they say, man, you're changing the way that I'm hunting. You're changing the way that I'm doing things. Thank you. And there's nothing more rewarding to be able to kind of create a change in an industry that's been around forever, right?
So let me ask you a question real quick. Not to cut you off, Dan, sorry. But I watch Shark Tank periodically, and what you're saying, a lot of entrepreneurs go on that show and say, they're like, we had incredible success ramp up, and we, had trouble meeting demand and inventory and all those things. And most of the sharks, what they always say is, if they're American made, they're like, you need to ship your distribution, your manufacturing stuff overseas, get that cost per unit down so you can get more inventory, and all that kind of stuff. Being a company that's American made, talk a little bit about, the challenges that you face when, it comes to sourcing materials and all of these things. Because a lot of times, if it was just about the dollar, if that was the only thing that mattered, that's what they would do. And that's what most companies do. And it's just about stock price and all that kind of stuff. They ship everything overseas. But talk a little bit about that and just sort of, not just the pride of making a product in the US, but just sort of, not giving in, not making it, easy on yourself by going out to the cheapest, fabricator or whatever, that you could probably source overseas if you wanted to.
When we're sitting around right now, I'm sitting around the fire with a group of guys. And one of the comments when I'm at different duck camps all over the country is, oh, you should go on Shark Tank. And like you, I'm a fan of Shark Tank, and I hear those guys' vision and those guys' plans, and obviously they're very successful, but their 100% goal, their only mindset actually has nothing to do with the product.
Right.
It has everything to do with a spreadsheet mindset. How can I make more money? And that's one of the things that I almost despise in the waterfowl world and the products that we're given is, honestly, find me a pair of waders that doesn't leak. Find me a shotgun that doesn't jam. And you could look at every waterfowl forum online. You could have 60 pages and 4,000 comments of why my Browning's better than your Jam and Ellie. Whatever it is, at the end of the day, there's nothing that brings me more pride than being American made, because there's nothing that'll shake you up more than looking in the eyes of a team of welders. I outsource everything right now. I've got goosebumps telling you this. We have 5 full-time welders working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week during hunting season that I outsource to.
Yeah, that's
when these guys come to you and they tell you that they were able to provide Christmas for their families, because of what we do, tell me something that matters more in life. Nothing. And so I can look at spreadsheets, and guys tell me all the time, first thing out of everybody's mouth, oh, I'm thinking of teal season this year. I was in El Campo, Texas, and you got a bunch of successful business guys. And the first thing out of their mouth is, you're never going to make it unless you go to China. To hell with that. Yeah. Everybody can make a product in China, but I would rather my company fail. I would rather my company fail than to take a product overseas just because it's easier. And maybe I'm stupid. I don't know. I'm just trying to do the best thing that I can and move forward. But I'll tell you one thing. When I lay my head on my pillow at night, I know that there's a team of guys that depend on me. And if I can put an extra penny in their pocket in the process, hell yeah, that's successful. And so the Shark Tank mindset, or the business mindset for, oh, you got to take it overseas. And that's what everybody does. And I'm sure they're smarter than I am, but whatever happens with Quack Rack in the future, when I'm 75 years old and I'm looking back at my life and what I've done, the thing that I remember is the look in these guys' eyes when they're proud of the products that they're making, and they don't even duck hunt. These are just welders. These are just everyday guys, $18 to $24 an hour guys that don't even know what a duck decoy is. But they know that when they stare at 40 boxes, when a UPS 18-wheeler pulls up and they load the forklift to put it in there, that's a win to them. And that's a win to me, that they have pride in what they're doing and what they're building in our Quack Racks for our customers.
Amen to that. There's not much more to say there.
Yeah, I mean, I got to admit, part of what I love about the waterfowl industry is, the type of people that you meet and the type of, camaraderie that you share. And, just hearing you talk about that, gives me goosebumps too, because, it is like you said, there are companies out there that value the very last penny that they can squeeze from somebody. And then there's companies that value, the other things that really matter, and some of the things that you talked about, and delivering quality products. And, I grew up in a blue collar area, where Dan still lives, and, a lot of people, work in trades, tool and die, things like that. So, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, to some of those people, orders like that and stuff is the difference between whether they, get their kids, the Christmas present they've really wanted to, or the one, that they could just, that they could make work that year. So, my hat's off to you. And, I hope, I think that because of that mindset is exactly why the company will be successful, and not the other way around. So, Dan, you got anything else you want to hit here? We've kept him off the boat for an hour already, and I know he wants to get out there, and he said the guard were gathering up, so we want to let him get to it. So anything else you got, you want to ask him before we let him go?
Down in Texas, sitting around a fire, are you drinking Shinerbach, or what do you got going down there?
We started out with the light stuff, but now we're into the brown water. So life is good here in Texas. So back to the grind.
There you go. No, just thanks for the time, and yeah, I know when we talked previously, what am I going to talk to for an hour? And I think you spelled it out real nice for us, so we appreciate you coming on the show, and it was a great conversation.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share our story with your followers, and as a business owner, I turn my head at most forums, if you will, on social media. That's the last place a business owner wants to go. But you guys have such a strong following and a bunch of good group of guys, and it's great to see the positive participation and value that your listeners add to the group and add to what you guys are doing. So keep doing it. And Adam Peeler with Lifetime sent me a request to join, and I have. It's been a pleasure following you guys. So I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to share our story this evening.
Well, we certainly appreciate it. And why don't you let everybody know who's listening where they can go and check out Quack Rack on social media and all that good stuff?
Yeah, if you're running a mud boat, if you're running, the run and gun style out of a truck like we talked about earlier, or you're using a UTV, we've got a solution for you. So check us out at quackrack.com. Give us a call. We'd be happy to help you out. And we ship all over the U.S., Canada, and now we're shipping to South America. So anything we can do to help you out or get feedback, we'd be happy to hear from you. And so thank you guys. I appreciate everything.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. All right, Dan, let's go ahead and put a bow on this one. What do you say?
Yes, sir.
All right, that'll do it. Episode 75 in the books. Appreciate Garrett Walker of Quack Rack for joining us and giving us a little insight behind the curtain on what it takes to be a business in the waterfowl industry. If you need to catch up on any past episodes of the show, you can do so at hpoutdoors.com. We've got some new HP Outdoors hats available online. You can pick one of those up if you're interested. And as always, if you haven't had an opportunity, a 5-star rating and review on iTunes would be appreciated. Until next week, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.